Power has always lived in the shadows, not the kind measured in titles, wealth, or noise, but the kind that bends rooms quietly, the kind that reshapes decisions without raising a voice. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that real influence doesn't grow in the sunlight of admiration. It grows in the dim corridors, where instinct meets strategy, where emotion dissolves into calculation, where presence becomes a weapon long before action ever needs to follow. And the people who rise to this level rarely announce themselves. They don't fight for attention. They cultivate habits, dark, disciplined, deliberate, that separate them from those who still believe power is something you chase instead of something you shape. These habits are not glamorous. They don't inspire applause. They aren't taught in leadership seminars or printed on motivational posters. They develop slowly, silently, inside people who realize that human nature, not ambition, is the real battlefield. Machiavelli never said the powerful must be cruel. He said they must understand what cruelty means, what fear means, what loyalty means, and how fragile all of those things become when life presses people into corners. To him, the essence of power was clarity, cold clarity about how the world works, not how we wish it worked. And so, the powerful cultivate their first dark habit, detachment from the comfort of being understood. Ordinary people crave recognition, validation, emotional connection. They want their intentions praised, their hearts read correctly, their pain acknowledged. But power doesn't grow in that soil. The moment your sense of identity relies on the interpretations of others, you've surrendered the deepest form of control. The powerful understand this instinctively. They learn to become whole without being seen, stable without being reassured, certain without being understood. This detachment is not emotional numbness. It's the refusal to let others define the frame through which their life is viewed. This detachment creates an aura that unsettles people, not because it threatens them, but because it forces them to confront an unfamiliar presence, someone who isn't shaped by the social temperature of the moment. Machiavelli observed that those who cannot be easily read become difficult to influence, and those who are difficult to influence are always feared, respected, or both. But most importantly, they are free. The second dark habit begins where detachment ends, the discipline of controlled perception. Powerful individuals understand that people don't respond to truth. They respond to the version of truth they perceive. So the powerful pay attention, not to how they feel, but to how they appear. They are deliberate in their emotional pacing, slow to react, slow to reveal, slow to confirm what others think they know. Machiavelli taught that a leader must appear composed even when storms rage beneath the surface. Not because the appearance itself is power, but because it shapes the behavior of others in a way that protects the leader's long-term position. This isn't deception, it's strategic restraint, a refusal to let temporary impulses rewrite permanent narratives. And like any dark habit, it demands a high price, the ability to tolerate misunderstanding, misjudgment, even criticism, without rushing to correct the record. Ordinary people defend themselves. The powerful choose when clarity is worth the effort. Most of the time, it isn't. The third habit is one almost no one wants to admit, the ability to observe without participating. Most people enter a room eager to engage, eager to add, eager to be noticed. The powerful enter quietly, not shy, simply aware. They watch the micro movements others overlook. Who interrupts whom? Who laughs too loudly? Whose eyes dart away under pressure? Who performs confidence rather than embodies it? Observation becomes their hidden currency. Because while others reveal themselves through constant expression, the powerful gather information without giving any away. Machiavelli believed that understanding human nature was the closest thing to prophecy. And he was right. People broadcast their motivations constantly. They leak their fears in their jokes. They betray their desires in their silences. But only those who know how to watch can see the full shape of what's unfolding. The powerful cultivate this habit until it becomes second nature, until the world feels less like chaos and more like a pattern waiting to be read. The fourth habit grows from that deep observation, the refusal to react at the speed of emotion. Power is never in the first reaction, it's in the second. The considered one. The one shaped not by the moment, but by the long arc of consequence. Machiavelli warned that impulsive leaders undermine themselves more effectively than any enemy could. And so, the powerful learn to stretch the space between stimulus and response, not to suppress emotion, but to choose action with precision. This habit gives them an advantage that feels almost supernatural. While others escalate, they stabilize. While others defend, they assess. While others rush to reclaim control, the powerful quietly absorb the situation until they understand exactly where the leverage sits. And when they act once, with purpose, without the messiness of repeated corrections. Finally, the fifth dark habit that sets powerful people apart is the most difficult of all: a selective relationship with trust. Machiavelli didn't say trust no one. He said trust carefully, trust slowly, trust with your eyes open. The powerful understand that people are consistent only in their inconsistency. Loyalties shift, priorities change, circumstances evolve. So instead of investing trust as a gift, they treat trust as a calculation, earned through pattern, maintained through alignment, evaluated constantly. This isn't cynicism, it's realism. The powerful don't expect betrayal, but they don't build their foundation on the assumption that loyalty will withstand every storm. They don't cling to relationships out of fear of loneliness. They don't romanticize alliances. They understand the fluid nature of human behavior and build accordingly, with flexibility, with awareness, with contingency. Not because they want to dominate others, but because they refuse to be blind to the shifting landscape of human intention. These dark habits do not make someone cruel. They make them grounded. They give them clarity where others have noise, stability where others have turbulence. Machiavelli's world was brutal, but his insights weren't meant to create monsters. They were meant to reveal the invisible rules that have always governed power, rules still alive today, pulsing beneath the civil language of modern life, shaping hierarchies in offices, politics, communities, and relationships. If the first habits shape the inner architecture of power, the next ones shape how that architecture interacts with the world. Machiavelli understood that power is never merely a personal attribute, it is relational. It exists in how others orient themselves around you, how they interpret your value, how they respond to your presence, how they adjust their choices because of you, even when you say nothing. And the powerful cultivate habits that solidify this gravitational pull, not through force, but through design. The first of these outward-facing dark habits is strategic absence. Ordinary people measure influence by presence, showing up, speaking, contributing, being seen. But presence saturates quickly. The more familiar you become, the more predictable you seem. And predictability kills mystique. Machiavelli understood that a prince seen too often loses stature, not because he becomes weaker, but because he becomes common. The powerful internalize this truth deeply. They know that their influence grows not only from what they do, but from what they withhold. They understand that being slightly out of reach sharpens attention. It makes people lean forward, wonder, anticipate. Strategic absence is not disappearing. It is rationing yourself with precision, showing up when it matters, staying silent when noise would dilute your impact, allowing your lack of presence to create tension, expectation, curiosity. This habit makes every appearance feel intentional, every action feel weighted, every word feel considered. People begin to notice when you're not there, and that awareness alone becomes a form of power. The second habit is controlled ambiguity, a technique the powerful master without theatrics. Most people overshare. They explain their motives, justify their decisions, narrate their emotions. In doing so, they place their internal world into the hands of others. But the powerful realize something different. Clarity is a gift, and gifts should be earned. So they speak in measured terms, reveal only what is necessary, and allow others to interpret the rest. This ambiguity unsettles some, fascinates others, and forces everyone to project their own assumptions onto the powerful figure. Machiavelli knew that the unknown carries more weight than the known. People fear shadows more than swords. They respect someone whose thoughts they cannot map. Controlled ambiguity allows the powerful to control narratives without speaking. It gives them plausible flexibility. It prevents them from being boxed in. And it creates a psychological advantage. Others hesitate to challenge what they do not fully understand. The third habit is selective generosity, a concept modern readers often misunderstand. Generosity, in the hands of the powerful, is not manipulation. It is calibration. Machiavelli wrote that favors bind people more effectively than fear, because debts of gratitude create psychological weight. But this is not about buying loyalty. It is about signaling. I notice, I choose, I reward. When the powerful act generously, they do so openly, but not frequently. They make the gesture visible, but not common. They give something meaningful enough to matter, but not large enough to corrupt. Selective generosity does not create dependency. It shapes perception. People remember who lifted them, even in small ways, and that memory subtly affects how they speak, decide, and align. A gift from someone who does not give often becomes a story, and stories spread influence more effectively than commands. The fourth dark habit is emotional containment, distinct from repression or stoicism. Most people leak emotion constantly, through tone, posture, reaction, even breath. They believe emotion connects them to others, but it also exposes their internal landscape. Machiavelli warned that a leader must show emotion only when it strengthens his position. The powerful practice containment so they can choose their emotional presentation, the way an artist chooses a brushstroke. Containment is not coldness. It is control. It is the ability to feel deeply while broadcasting selectively. When others provoke them, their stillness becomes unnerving. When others panic, their calm becomes anchoring. When others overinflate their triumphs, the powerful remain steady, making victory seem natural rather than lucky. This habit creates a reputation that spreads quietly. Nothing shakes them. That perception alone becomes a shield stronger than any argument. The fifth habit is one most people avoid because it requires inner durability, accepting solitude without craving escape. Power isolates, not because the powerful push people away, but because few can live comfortably in the presence of someone who does not seek approval, does not overshare, and does not dilute themselves. Machiavelli knew that a prince must often stand alone in decisions others cannot understand. The powerful become accustomed to this and even value it. Solitude sharpens their thinking. It frees them from the emotional static of crowded minds. It allows them to build identity from the inside out rather than from the expectations of others. Ordinary people fear being alone because solitude forces them to confront themselves. The powerful embrace it because solitude exposes the truth they need to navigate the world. This does not mean they are antisocial. It means they curate their connections with intent. They are not lonely. They are selective. The sixth outward-facing habit is precision in boundaries. Boundaries, for them, are not speeches or confrontations. They are patterns. They are subtle adjustments. A delayed response that signals disapproval. a shortened meeting that signals misalignment, a shift in availability that signals a line has been crossed. They protect their energy without theatrics, and people learn quickly that access is earned, not assumed. Machiavelli understood that overexposure breeds contempt, but controlled access breeds respect. Boundaries become a language. People read them, even when they are not explicitly explained. And because the powerful enforce these boundaries consistently, others adapt without needing instruction. Finally, the seventh dark habit is long view thinking, the habit that ties all others together. Most people live in the tyranny of the immediate, emotions, impulses, short-term wins. But the powerful think in arcs, patterns, trajectories. They do not ask, what feels good now, but rather, what strengthens my position a year from now? 5 years? 10? Machiavelli valued this perspective more than any other. To him, short-term advantage was meaningless if it undermined long-term stability. Long-view thinking changes everything. It alters how the powerful speak, how they react, who they trust, what they commit to, and what they ignore. They understand that not every victory is worth the cost, and not every loss is truly a loss. They know when to step forward and when to step back. They know when silence is more profitable than explanation. They know which opportunities grow roots, and which simply look tempting in the moment. These outward habits don't create intimidation. They create gravitas, a sense that the powerful person moves differently, not arrogantly, but deliberately, not loudly, but with weight, not with force, but with inevitability. This is the Machiavellian principle stripped of cruelty, that the world organizes itself around those who know who they are, who guard their energy, who choose their presence with care, and who view life not as a performance, but as strategy. The next set of Machiavellian habits operates not on the self, nor on outward perception, but on the deeper terrain of influence, how powerful people read situations, decode human motivations, and reshape environments quietly. These habits are not theatrical, nor are they aggressive. They are patterns of awareness that allow the powerful to navigate complex social landscapes with an almost unnerving precision. The first of these is observational patience, a discipline that feels almost unnatural in a world driven by reaction. Most people listen to respond. They observe to confirm what they already believe. The powerful listen to understand. They wait. They absorb. They let silence stretch until others reveal more than they intended. Machiavelli understood that information is never neutral. People always leak their fears, their ambitions, their insecurities, and their blind spots. The powerful cultivate patience because rushed perception is inaccurate perception. They know that truth emerges slowly, and if they are quiet enough, it emerges on its own. Observational patience allows them to recognize patterns others miss. Who defers to whom? Who avoids eye contact? Who speaks with urgency? Who dominates space? Who subtly resents authority? Who seeks validation? These micro-indicators map out the real structure of any group, the informal hierarchy beneath the one printed on paper. With this map in hand, the powerful can navigate with clarity, while others stumble through assumptions. The second habit is reading intentions instead of words. Most people treat language at face value. They trust explanations, accept excuses, and evaluate statements as though people are always transparent. Machiavelli warned against this naivety. Words are often masks, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously. The powerful learn to interpret motivations first, communication second. They notice the gaps, what someone avoids mentioning, what they emphasize too strongly, what they express too quickly, what they promise without being asked. Intent reveals more than language. If someone must prove their loyalty, they likely lack it. If someone speaks excessively about fairness, they may be planning to demand more than they deserve. If someone compliments with too much intensity, admiration may not be their true goal. Access might. Once the powerful learn to read intentions, they stop being surprised by human behavior. Nothing feels sudden. Nothing feels dramatic. Everything is understandable, predictable, maneuverable. The third habit is anticipatory thinking, the quiet ability to see consequences before they unfold. Machiavelli believed that leaders must study not just what people do, but what people are likely to do under pressure, under reward, or under temptation. The powerful adopt this mindset naturally. They ask themselves, if I say this, what chain reaction will it trigger? If I support this person today, who will remember tomorrow? If I decline this opportunity, what doors remain open later? This kind of thinking is not anxiety, it is preparation. It gives the powerful a calmness others lack because they operate with foresight instead of improvisation. They position themselves so that even unfavorable outcomes leave them standing. They arrange decisions so that the future contains options rather than traps. And they avoid impulsive choices because they see the long-range cost hidden beneath momentary satisfaction. The fourth habit is controlled adaptability, a subtle but essential skill. Ordinary people often react to change either defensively or chaotically. The powerful adapt without losing their center. Machiavelli argued that the most dangerous leader is the one who stays rigid in a shifting world. Power requires flexibility, not the kind that changes values, but the kind that changes methods. The powerful understand that consistency should exist in principles, not tactics. They can shift tone, pace, approach, or even alliances if the terrain demands it. Adaptability for them is not compromise. It is survival. Controlled adaptability also means knowing when not to adapt. Sometimes the environment is volatile not because it has transformed, but because others are panicking. The powerful distinguish real changes from emotional noise. They do not mistake movement for progress or crisis for importance. Their adaptability is measured, intentional, and always linked to their long-view strategy. The fifth habit is subtle influence, which replaces persuasion with environment shaping. Most people attempt to influence through arguments, explanations, or emotional appeals. The powerful influence quietly, by directing attention, altering context, or adjusting incentives. Instead of saying, "Do this," they make it easier to choose the path they prefer. Instead of convincing, they clarify. Instead of pushing, they nudge. This kind of influence feels natural to others. It does not trigger resistance because it does not feel forced. A suggestion framed as a question. A decision presented with context rather than instruction. A preference shown through action rather than declaration. Machiavelli understood that people resist orders but embrace beliefs they think they discovered themselves. The powerful use this principle not to control others, but to increase alignment without conflict. The sixth habit is resource conservation, a mindset that extends beyond money. The powerful conserve attention, emotional energy, words, commitments, and relationships. They do not scatter themselves. They do not fight battles that offer no long-term reward. They do not waste mental space on resentment or self-justification. Most importantly, they conserve credibility. They do not make promises they cannot keep. They do not exaggerate. They do not overstate. Their reliability becomes a form of capital. People trust their word because they use it sparingly. Resource conservation gives them stamina. It allows them to act with impact while others are drained by small conflicts, unnecessary reactions, and emotional overextension. It creates a buffer, a margin of strength that becomes visible in crises when everyone else is depleted. The seventh habit is studied restraint, the ability to hold back even when they are right, even when they are provoked, even when they possess information that could win the moment. Machiavelli advised that sometimes the greatest power lies in letting others underestimate you, overextend themselves, or reveal their own weaknesses. The powerful do not correct every misconception. They do not rush to defend themselves. They do not participate in every argument. Restraint becomes a strategy, conserving energy, protecting ambiguity, avoiding unnecessary enemies, and maintaining narrative control. Restraint also creates contrast. When they finally speak or intervene, the impact is amplified because they do not do so constantly. Their actions feel deliberate, not reactive. Their words feel considered, not impulsive. Others lean in because restraint creates scarcity, and scarcity heightens power. The eighth habit is detachment from ego, perhaps the most difficult to embody. Ego demands recognition, victory, vindication. Machiavelli understood that ego is the trap that ruins leaders. The powerful learn to operate not from ego, but from intention. They can be underestimated without reacting emotionally. They can stand firm without needing applause. They do not enter competitions they gain nothing from winning. Their self-worth does not depend on public perception, and so public perception cannot destabilize them. Detachment from ego is not humility. It is clarity. It allows them to choose battles wisely, negotiate without resentment, and maintain focus while others lose themselves in pride. It allows them to walk away when necessary. It prevents desperation. It anchors them in internal stability. These habits form a layer of silent influence, unseen but felt. They give powerful people depth, subtlety, resilience, and an uncanny ability to navigate complexity. They are the habits that transform power from something loud and fragile into something quiet and enduring. The final set of dark habits explores how powerful individuals maintain their position once it is established, how they preserve stability, manage shifting alliances, and sustain influence in environments that are constantly evolving. These are the habits that allow power not only to rise, but to endure. They are not rooted in dominance or aggression. They are rooted in strategic self-regulation, environmental shaping, and disciplined decision-making. Machiavelli understood that acquiring power requires one kind of intelligence, but keeping it requires another entirely. The first of these sustaining habits is neutralizing volatility. Powerful people understand that chaos benefits only the desperate. When emotions escalate around them, conflict, uncertainty, tension, they act as stabilizing agents. Not by suppressing conflict, but by absorbing it. They slow the tempo. They separate heat from fact. They diffuse urgency with precision. Machiavelli warned that disordered environments swallow leaders who lose their composure. The powerful internalize this deeply. They maintain an emotional temperature lower than the room around them. Their calm becomes gravitational. People orient themselves toward it without realizing it. Neutralizing volatility is not passivity. It is protection. It prevents unnecessary escalation. It keeps conversations from becoming battles. It allows decisions to be made from clarity instead of adrenaline. And it subtly elevates the powerful person into an anchor-like role that others instinctively rely on. The second sustaining habit is rotational alliances. The understanding that people change, environments shift, and yesterday's ally may become tomorrow's obstacle. Unlike the paranoid who distrust everyone, or the naive who trust indiscriminately, powerful individuals maintain dynamic alliances. They support when interests align, distance themselves when paths diverge, and re-engage when circumstances shift again. Rotational alliances are not manipulative. They are practical. Machiavelli argued that rigid loyalty is admirable but dangerous. The powerful remain principled, but they do not cling to relationships out of sentimentality or habit. They adjust without hostility. They remain cordial, even during distance. They leave doors open. This prevents unnecessary enemies and allows future cooperation without the burden of past conflict. The third sustaining habit is systemic perception. the ability to see institutions, groups, and networks not as collections of individuals, but as interconnected structures. Most people interact socially, person to person, moment to moment. The powerful interact structurally. They observe incentives, shared pressures, opposing goals, collective fears. They analyze how one decision affects a chain of outcomes. They see how an internal shift in one person can destabilize an entire team. This systemic perception, which Machiavelli considered essential for leadership, allows them to navigate complexity with clarity. They do not react to symptoms. They solve root causes. They do not address surface disagreements. They address misaligned incentives. They do not get lost in drama. They see the machinery beneath the noise. This habit makes their decisions feel uncommonly accurate because they are not treating the obvious. They are treating the source. The fourth sustaining habit is reputation crafting, a quiet and consistent effort to make sure their identity is shaped by action, not accident. The powerful know that reputations are not built through grand moments, but through accumulated patterns: reliability, restraint, decisiveness, confidentiality, consistency. Machiavelli argued that reputation is a shadow of the truth, meaning it reflects behavior, but not perfectly. The powerful, therefore, shape their shadow by controlling what they reveal, how often they appear, how they respond to pressure, and which qualities they allow others to associate with them. Reputation is not performance. It is discipline. It becomes a buffer that protects them when circumstances turn against them, because people assume their intentions even before they explain themselves. Others give them the benefit of the doubt, because the narrative surrounding them has been established through years of steady behavior. The fifth sustaining habit is psychological distance, a subtle but vital form of self-protection. Powerful individuals care, connect, and support, but they do not entangle. They maintain enough emotional distance to think clearly, choose wisely, and keep their identity intact. Machiavelli warned that excessive attachment leads leaders into obligations that weaken judgment. The powerful take this to heart. They invest deeply, but they do not attach blindly. They empathize, but they do not absorb. They support, but they do not lose their boundaries. Psychological distance makes them dependable. It keeps their decisions clean. It allows them to protect others without sacrificing themselves. And it prevents burnout, resentment, and emotional entrapment. The sixth sustaining habit is internal auditing, a practice most people avoid because it requires confronting the truth. The powerful examine their decisions, motives, biases, and missteps without flinching. They ask themselves hard questions. Did I act from clarity or impulse? Did I respond to the situation or to my ego? Have my habits strengthened me, or have they become rigid? Where am I blind? Who have I stopped listening to? Machiavelli understood that leaders fall not because they lack strength, but because they lack self-awareness. The powerful audit themselves regularly. They correct course quickly. They shed outdated assumptions. They adapt before failure forces them to. Internal auditing keeps them aligned with reality instead of living inside a flattering illusion. The seventh sustaining habit is deliberate privacy. Power attracts attention, some admiring, some opportunistic, some hostile. The powerful understand that exposure is vulnerability. They protect their inner world with care, their fears, their strategies, their doubts, their long-term plans. Privacy is not secrecy. It is sovereignty. It maintains their sense of self, unpolluted by external noise. It protects relationships. It shields them from manipulation. It prevents their identity from becoming dependent on the audience. Machiavelli noted that a ruler must never reveal the full extent of his intentions. Powerful individuals modernize this idea, not because they wish to deceive, but because they recognize that their inner clarity is too valuable to be shaped by public opinion. Privacy becomes a fortress, not of isolation, but of independence. The eighth and final sustaining habit is self-generated purpose. Power becomes fragile when it depends on external validation, status, reward, applause. The powerful ground themselves in purpose that originates internally. They know what they stand for, what they are building, what they are moving toward. Purpose becomes their compass. It prevents them from drifting into distraction. It keeps their decisions coherent. It makes them resilient when circumstances shift, because their direction does not depend on approval. Machiavelli believed that leaders must think beyond themselves, beyond their moment, beyond transient desires. Purpose gives power depth. It transforms discipline into meaning, ambition into direction, and restraint into intention. It is the reason their influence endures long after individual moments fade. These final habits do not make power glamorous. They make it stable. They strip away illusion and leave only what is durable: clarity, self-regulation, adaptability, and a commitment to internal coherence. Power sustained through these habits does not roar. It does not demand. It does not collapse under scrutiny. It exists because it is anchored strategically, psychologically, and purposefully.